डायरेक्ट प्रेजेंटेशन
मैंने कुछ करना
आपने बताना होता
है?
है, आपने बताना होता है ना क्या?
अच्छा हाँ अस्सलाम वालेकुम. Today the topic is RH incompatibility or RH disease, and Dr. Fiza, one of our residents, she is going to make a presentation. After she has presented, we welcome your questions, and I would have a couple of presentations, small presentations, not mine. I have borrowed them from Professor Rubina Sohail. She has accumulated some data and about the prevalence of this disease in Pakistan and its implications, etc. Because there is a global initiative to reduce the incidence and eradicate RH incompatibility. And therefore, the slides of those presentations will give you some insight into what, as obstetricians and gynecologists, we can do in this direction. Since the burden of disease affects women, not directly, but for their pregnancies, if they get isoimmunized, or therefore it's very much the obstetrician's concern that we take measures to prevent development of this isoimmunization. And some of those slides will help you negotiate into that field. So first of all, we'll have the presentation from Dr. Fiza, and then I will project those slides. वो कह रहे नो वॉइस आ रही होगी.
सिर्फ चलेगी, पहले म्यूट किया हुआ था इसलिए.
चले सामने बनी है तो लेके
मैं कर
ये बात कर सकते हैं.
जी जी.
ये कुर्सी मुझे बड़ी चुभती है यहाँ पर, तो यार थोड़ा
मैं
कर दो रास्ते में. नहीं इधर नहीं, वो पीछे ले लेती है.
ठीक है.
सारा अंधेरा ना करो सर. ये नहीं, ये वाली बात.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Fiza Maqbool. जी sir, जी. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Fiza Maqbool. I am first year resident at Hamid Latif Hospital. Today the topic of my presentation is RH incompatibility.
ये आवाज ठीक आ रही है? जरा सर देख लेना.
जी सर, आवाज ठीक है.
Definition. RH incompatibility is a condition which develops when there is a difference in the RH blood type of the pregnant mother who is RH negative and her fetus who is RH positive. Introduction. The fetal blood group depends upon the blood group of both parents. Therefore, it can be different from that of the mother. During the normal pregnancy, the fetal and the maternal blood circulate independently.
आप वो ये स्लाइड जो है आपकी नेक्स्ट जो दूसरी नजर आ रही है ना आपको, मेन वो प्रोजेक्ट हो रही है.
Oh, sorry sir. Okay. Okay. Introduction. The fetal blood group depends upon the blood group of both parents. Therefore, it may be different from mother's blood group. During the normal pregnancy, the fetal and the maternal blood circulate independently in the two completely different circulations and do not mix with each other in normal circumstances. Mixing of the two bloods can result in a number of incompatibilities, which is seen in about 1.5% of all the pregnancies. Before starting the topic, we shall have a brief overlook over the two major blood group systems. The red cell membrane is lined with multiple antigens, and the presence or absence of these antigens determine the blood group. Number one is the ABO system. In ABO system, this system is basically based on the presence or absence of the A or B antigens. Group A blood group is that in which A antigen is present. Group B is that on which B antigen is present, and group AB is that on which AB antigens are. Both A and B antigens are present. On group O, neither A nor B is present. And in group A patients, the antibodies against the anti-B antibodies are present. In group B, anti-A antibodies are present, and in group AB, none of the antibodies is present. In group O, both A and B antibodies are present. Rh system. This is also called as rhesus system. There are over 40 Rh antigens which can be present on the red cell membranes. Among them, the most important ones are capital D, capital C, and capital E. Two of these antigens have immunologically distinct isoforms that are small c and capital C, and small e or capital E. There is no evidence of an isoform of capital D antigen, and small d is basically used to describe the absence of capital D antigen. Within the Rh antigens, D is the strongest immunologically, and its presence or absence determines the Rh blood group type. Pathophysiology.
सारा पढ़ना तो आप मोटे-मोटे पॉइंट्स बताओ।
अच्छा जी।
उनसे बोलो ना, ये हम हमेशा ऐसे करते हैं।
जी सर।
We don't read slides.
Okay sir.
And we don't put the whole text on the screen. वो ये नहीं होना चाहिए।
Okay sir.
इसमें आप जो आप highlight करना चाहते हो points वो बताइए।
Okay sir. Okay sir. Normally in the pregnancies, the fetal and the maternal circulations, they remain separated until the third stage of labor, when at the time of placental separation a slight mixing may occur and the fetal cells may enter the maternal circulation. And incompatibility only results when an Rh negative woman conceives an Rh positive fetus. Once the fetal red cells carrying the anti-D antigens enter into the maternal circulation, they are identified as foreign bodies by the immune system of the mother, and it gets stimulated to produce a defense mechanism by producing antibodies. This is called anti-D antibodies. The antibodies produced initially are IgM antibodies, which are then replaced by IgD antibodies. Due to their larger molecular weight, IgM antibodies cannot cross the placenta, while IgG do so quickly. When the same woman conceives the second time with the Rh positive fetus, the anti-D antibodies cross the placenta and enter the anti-D antibodies already present in the maternal circulation. They readily cross the placenta and start entering the fetal circulation from the beginning of the pregnancy, and gets attached to the D antigens present on the surface of the fetal red cells and formed antigen antibody complexes. These fetal cells, they continue to work normally until the 18th to 28th week of gestation, where the fetal reticuloendothelial system gets matured, and hence these cells are hemolyzed. The fetal hemolysis poses two problems. One is the fetal anemia, and other is the fetal hyperbilirubinemia. In this diagram, we can see in the part A of this diagram that the fetal cells carrying positive antigens enter into the maternal circulation. Hence, the maternal immune system produce antibodies against these Rh positive cells. And in the B diagram, we see these antibodies cross the placenta and hemolyze the Rh positive cells of the fetus. Okay, the potential sensitizing events for Rh disease are miscarriage, termination of pregnancy, ectopic pregnancy, antepartum hemorrhage, invasive prenatal testing like chorionic villus sampling, amniocentesis, chordocentesis, external cephalic version, and delivery. Okay. Management of pregnancy in Rhd negative women. First of all, blood grouping and its importance. ABO blood group and Rh blood group should always be performed in a woman visiting at the antenatal clinic at her booking appointment. In all the Rh negative women, ABO blood group and Rh factor of the husband should always be determined. When the husband is Rh positive, his Rh genotype should be investigated. The father's genotype can be either homozygous, which denotes capital D, or heterozygous, which denotes small d, capital D, and small d for D antigens. The Rh negative woman will always have a homozygous genotype of D, that is small d and small d, which means the absence of D antigens. Okay, this diagram shows the probability of the fetus being RHD positive if the father is homozygous Rh positive. Then all of the siblings will, all of the offsprings will be heterozygous Rh positive. But if the father is Rh positive heterozygous, then half of the offsprings will be Rh positive heterozygous and half of the offsprings will be Rh negative. Antibody screening. Antibody screening should also be done at the time of the booking, and these antibodies are detected by the indirect Coombs test. The RHD negative women, specific antigens should be paid, in RHD negative women, specific attention should be paid at the detection of the antibodies. A negative test for antibodies does not always means the absence of immunization, as the weakly immunized woman may not have detectable antibody levels in the early months of the pregnancy. Therefore, the test should be repeated at 24 and 28 and 38 weeks of and 34 weeks of gestation. Where the indirect Coombs test is found to be positive, it is carried out in dilutions to establish the anti-D antibody titer. Further management varies in an already immunized which means sensitized women from those who have not yet been exposed to the fetal red cells and hence are still non-immunized. Okay, in RHD immunized mother, initial evaluation, anti-D antibody levels. When the anti-D antibodies are found to be present, the anti-D and anti-C levels should be measured every 4 weeks up to 28 weeks of pregnancy, and then every 2 weeks until delivery. Antibody levels or the quantity can be described by using the titer or by using international unit as a standard quantification method. Okay, the thresholds for various antibodies that could cause fetal anemia to trigger the referral for further investigations and monitoring. If the anti-D level of when the level of anti-D antibody is greater than 4 international units but less than 15 international units per ml, it correlates with a moderate risk of hemolytic disease of the fetus and the newborn. And when the anti-D levels are greater than 15 international units per ml, then it can cause severe hemolytic disease of the fetus and the newborn. So the referral for the fetal medical opinion should be therefore made once the anti-D levels are greater than 4 international units per milliliter. Anti-C level of 7.5 international unit, greater than 7.5 international unit but less than 20 international units per ml correlates with a moderate risk of hemolytic disease of the fetus and the newborn. Whereas anti-C levels of greater than 20 international units per ml correlates with a high risk of hemolytic disease of the fetus and the newborn. So the referral for a fetal medical specialist is made once the anti-C levels are greater than 7.5 international unit per ml. For the K antibodies, the referral should take place once they are detected, as the severe fetal anemia can occur even with the low titers. The presence of anti-E potentiates the severity of the anemia due to anti-C antibodies. So the referral at low levels is indicated. Okay, past obstetric history. The risk of fetal hemolysis in the current pregnancy can be calculated by critically analyzing the past obstetrical history. In the first sensitized pregnancy, the risk is relatively low. Following an affected pregnancy, the risk to the subsequent fetus increases and can lead to fetal anemia at an earlier gestation. If the hydrops has occurred in a pregnancy in a previous pregnancy, then it is likely to occur earlier in the subsequent pregnancy. Similarly, in the patient with a history of hemolytic disease of the fetus and the newborn in the previous pregnancy, early referral to the fetal medical specialist is also recommended. Determination of the fetal blood group. This can be done by either evaluating the paternal genotype and invasive procedures like fetal blood sampling, chorionic villus sampling. Another procedure has been introduced recently, which is free fetal DNA. It has been discovered from the maternal plasma. This determines the fetal genotype on the maternal blood sample, avoiding the need of any invasive test. The women who consents for free fetal DNA are offered a blood test at 15 to 16 weeks of gestation, and its result is only valid for the current pregnancy. Ultrasound can be used in the ultrasound. Severely affected babies with the features of hydrops fetalis can easily be picked on the ultrasound. Similarly, polyhydramnios can also be picked on the ultrasound. Ultrasound at booking is helpful in determination of the accurate duration of the gestation, which is important from the various aspects of management of RH immunization. Subsequent management. After the initial evaluation, the RHD immunized woman needs no extra care until the 18 to 20 weeks of gestation, the time when the fetal radiculoendothelial system matures and the fetal hemolysis begin. From there onward, the main objective of management is to prolong the pregnancy as close as to the term and to prevent fetus from the prematurity, yet preventing it from the anemia. This can be done by estimation of the degree of the fetal anemia and then institution of intrauterine blood transfusion where indicated. Fetal anemia can be detected by direct method, which is through the fetal blood sampling. This is mainly done at two sites. First is the entry of the first into in the umbilical cord near its insertion into the placenta, and the second at the intrahepatic portion of the umbilical vein. It is an invasive procedure and has a number of complications which do not let this method to become the method of choice for the determination of the fetal anemia. Indirect method. It includes antibody estimation, ultrasound. Ultrasound can be helpful in the detection of the early disease in the following manner. Number one is the extramedullary hematopoiesis. Its idea can be made by measuring the size of the fetal liver and spleen and Doppler studies. If there is a risk of fetal anemia, then the pregnancy should be monitored weekly by ultrasound, specifically assessing the fetal middle cerebral artery peak systolic velocities. The middle cerebral artery peak systolic velocity monitoring is predictive to moderate to severe fetal anemia with 100% sensitivity and a false positive rate of 12%. Intrauterine blood transfusion. The risks and the benefits of the procedure should be explained to the mother, who should also be made aware of the consequences of the untreated fetal anemia, which are the hydrops, preterm birth, perinatal death, severe neonatal jaundice, and kernicterus, as well as the risk of neonatal exchange transfusion. It should be only performed in the fetal medical units which have requisite invasive skills and appropriate perinatal hematology expertise. Generally, it is carried out every 2 weeks till delivery. There are basically two methods to give intrauterine transfusion, either through the intravenous blood transfusion, which is done at umbilical cord closer to its insertion into the placenta and the intrahepatic portion of the umbilical vein, or it can be given as intraperitoneal transfusion, where using a 20 gauge needle, the donor blood is transfused into the fetal peritoneal cavity, and the transfused blood will be absorbed into the fetal circulation over a period of time via the fetal lymphatics. Okay, what blood or blood components can be administered in emergency situation to a woman known to have red cell antibodies? The decision to use ABO negative, RHD negative, and K compatible blood group that is not matched for the other antibodies, or O negative when the woman's ABO system or RH groups are unknown, should be made on the balance of risk, which are severe hemorrhage versus a hemolytic transfusion reaction. The transfusion should not be delayed in the event of life-threatening hemorrhage. Close liaison with the transfusion laboratory is also essential. Delivery. So the time of delivery of the woman with the red cell antibodies that can cause fetal anemia will basically depend upon the antibody levels or titers and their rate of rise, as well as if any fetal therapy has been required. In the developed world, where there are facilities available for the intrauterine transfusion and the intensive neonatal care, the delivery is recommended at a gestation as early as 32 weeks. But in the developing countries, due to the poor availability of ICU care, the efforts are made to prolong the pregnancy as close as to the term as possible. Mode. The affected babies are anemic and more prone to develop hypoxia during labor. Therefore, cesarean section is generally preferred in the moderate to severely affected babies, especially if the gestation is less than 37 weeks. The mildly affected fetus, where the HB level has been raised with serial intrauterine transfusions, the labor may be induced once the pregnancy crosses 37 weeks of gestation. As these pregnancies are high risk, so the continuous electronic fetal heart rate monitoring is advised during labor. Arrangements for neonatal transfusions should also be made beforehand, and such labor should be attended by an experienced pediatrician. Cord blood investigations. 4 tests are performed over the sample taken from the cord blood group of the fetus, hemoglobin levels, bilirubin levels, and direct Coombs test. NTD and the direct Coombs test. In the direct Coombs test, anti-human antiglobulin is added to the fetal cells, and if agglutination occurs, it indicates that antibodies are bound to the fetal cells. Management of the neonate. If the baby is mildly affected, we can treat him with the ultraviolet light. Exchange transfusion is only needed when when the baby is moderately affected. When the HB is less than 10 gram per liter, or the total bilirubin is 340 micromole per liter in a term baby, or more than 250 micromole per liter in a preterm baby. Below given is the process of exchange transfusion. Okay. The newborn should have a regular assessment of the bilirubin and hemoglobin levels, and early discharge is not advised. The mother should be encouraged to feed the baby regularly and to prevent the dehydration, as dehydration can increase the severity of jaundice. Clinicians should be aware that if the bilirubin levels rise rapidly or above the interventional threshold, the phototherapy or exchange transfusion may be required. Future risks. The woman with a history of a previous pregnancy or infant affected with the hemolytic disease of the fetus or the newborn should be referred for early assessment to a fetal medical specialist in all the further pregnancies. Long-term consequences. Women should be advised that there are no long-term adverse health consequences associated with the presence of the red cell antibodies. Some infants may experience anemia persisting for a few weeks after the birth, while some infants may develop late anemia, which is usually due to the hypodegenerative anemia. It is the anemia due to the decreased RBC production, secondary to the impaired marrow function. Okay, in an RHD non-immunized mother, when the RHD negative mother conceives for the first time with an RHD positive child, she does not have antibodies in her circulation except when she has developed antibodies because of an incompatible blood transfusion beforehand. During this pregnancy, in the absence of any kind of vaginal bleeding, there is about 1% chance of silent feto-maternal hemorrhage. And it is therefore recommended that antibody estimation should be repeated at 28 and 34 weeks of gestation, even if they are not detected at booking. Prophylaxis. NTD, IgG antibodies are commercially now available and widespread, and it's widespread used worldwide for the prophylaxis of against the NTD isoimmunization. If administered at the time of feto-maternal hemorrhage, the antibodies block the D antigen on the surface of the fetal cells, which is then sequestered in the maternal liver, and the sensitization of the immune system is avoided. The widespread use of NTD has made the rhesus isoimmunization uncommon and reduced the perinatal mortality from 460 per million to 16 per million. Okay, quantification of the feto-maternal hemorrhage. This is basically done by the Kleihorn test. It is performed on the maternal blood soon after the feto-maternal hemorrhage to calculate the amount of fetal blood which has entered into the maternal circulation. In this test, the maternal blood is spread over a slide and treated with the acid or alkali. The maternal red cells develop a ghost-like appearance as the adult hemoglobin has been eluted out, leaving out only the outer membranes. Fetal red cells are resistant to elution. Fetal red cells maintain their color and thus they can be easily counted. Fetal red cells are counted in 50 lower power microscopic fields. It has been estimated that 5 cells in 50 low power microscopic fields represent a hemorrhage of 0.25 ml. This means that 20 cells are present in about 1 ml and 80 cells in 4 ml. Administration of NTD antibodies. Dose. It is currently recommended that for every estimated 4 ml of the fetal blood in the maternal circulation, 500 international units of NTD should be given. Therefore, for each additional 1 ml of the fetal red cells, 125 international units of the NTD is advised. To gain the maximum benefit, NTD should be given within the 72 hours of the potentially sensitizing event through intramuscular route. Okay, routine antenatal NTD prophylaxis. It is recommended as a treatment option for the pregnant woman, primigravida and multigravida who are rhesus negative and who are not known to be sensitized to the Rh antigen. This can be given as 2 doses of NTD immunoglobulin of 500 units, one at 28 weeks and the other at 34 weeks, or a single dose of 1500 international units between 28 to 30 weeks. So 34 is written by mistake. It is 28 to 30 weeks of gestation. This regime reduces the antenatal sensitization rate to 0.2%. This is followed by routine prophylaxis at delivery. Excuse me, ये मैंने इसको maximize कर दिया. इधर रहेगा, ठीक है, और पूरा आ जाए. इधर ही रहेगा, मैंने पूरा दिखा दिया. ठीक है, इतना भी काफी.
मुझे तो बताते हो.
ओके. अच्छा जी. NTD administration checklist. Always confirm the woman's identity and that the woman is Rh negative using the latest laboratory test, and that the woman does not have immune NTD, and that an informed consent for the administration of the NTD is recorded. The potentially sensitizing events during pregnancy. If the gestation is less than 12 weeks and the potentially sensitizing events like vaginal bleeding associated with severe pain, evacuation of the retained products of contraception or instrumentation of the uterus, medical or surgical termination of pregnancy, ectopic or molar pregnancy occurs, then we have to administer at least 250 international units of NTD within 72 hours of the event. And if the gestational age is between 12 to 20 weeks, for any potentially sensitizing event, we administer 250 international units of NTD IgG within 72 hours of the event. Okay. And if the gestation is 20 weeks to the term, for any potentially sensitizing event, we request a Kleihar test and immediately administer 500 international units of NTD IgG within 72 hours of the event. It is recommended that potentially sensitizing events and routine antenatal NTD prophylaxis should be taken as 2 separate programs. Okay, if the Kleihar test if the Kleihar test indicates that further administration of NTD is required, then we can give more NTD once the discussion, after this discussion with the laboratory. In cases of continuous vaginal bleeding, at least 500 international unit NTD should be given at a minimum of 6 weekly intervals, irrespective of the presence of the detectable NTD antibody. And a Kleihar test is requested every 2 weeks in the case, and in that case, more NTD is needed. Routine antenatal NTD prophylaxis. For routine NTD antenatal prophylaxis, take a sample to confirm the blood group, check antibody screening. Administer 1500 international units NTD at 28 to 30 weeks of gestation, between 28 to 30 weeks of gestation, or administer at least 500 international unit NTD at 28 weeks, and then administer it again at 34 weeks with a dose of 500 international units NTD. At delivery or on the diagnosis of an intrauterine death, which is greater, at which the gestational age is greater than 20 weeks, a Kleihar test is requested, and 500 international unit of NTD is given within 72 hours of the delivery. And if indicated by the Kleihar test, more NTD is administered following discussion with the laboratory. Last slide. High dose prophylaxis. The Americans believe that fetal-maternal hemorrhage of more than 15 ml is extremely rare, and they advocate the use of 1500 international units NTD in every case without performing a Kleihar test. This approach is currently being practiced in Pakistan, as all the NTD preparations available contain 1500 international units. That's it. Thank you.
How do you convert these international units into micrograms? Because most of the doses in Pakistan available are in micrograms per ml. It is 100 micrograms of NTD is equivalent to 500 international units. Yes, the dose that you give, that is 1500 international units, the full dose of ROGAM or NTD that you give after delivery also is translated if into micrograms, that is 300 micrograms. And it is given intramuscularly. Yeah, Seth. Now, thank you, Fiza. ये आपको कर देना होगा Fiza had accumulated absolutely relevant material for this talk, which I would say was quite comprehensive. The only thing one can kind of argue about was the presentation. The slides were straightforward and she had to read them, but it was a very good effort. I would appreciate that she stuck to the relevance of the topic, and all the slides are quite relevant. In a way, it is a kind of concise account of RH incompatibility situation and what needs to be done in most of the cases from the point of view of management. Greater emphasis obviously needs to be placed on certain things, for example, prophylaxis, etc. And also how we diagnose that, what are the implications. She did it quite well indeed. Now, just to give you some idea of the situation in Pakistan. Is delivery indicated after in utero transfusion? If yes, then when? This is in utero transfusion is given in those situations when delivery will not result in sufficient maturity of the fetus, and the chances of the baby surviving outside in the incubator are very slim. So therefore, to allow the baby to remain inside the uterus to gain further maturity and some maturity of certain systems like lung maturity, etc., the pregnancy is prolonged. And for prolongation of pregnancy, you give in utero transfusion. And if needed, there can be more than one in utero transfusions. Unfortunately, we have not very well developed fetal medicine services in Pakistan. this is the field that that needs to be considered by the new generation of specialists coming up in this country, and I would recommend. This morning I was thinking that when we take into consideration carcinoma of the cervix, it has many lessons for us, like prevention and how to detect it early and then treat it in that fashion. And there can be a possibility that one can kind of eradicate it or minimize its incidence and reduce to almost nil the mortality because of carcinoma of the cervix. One on prevention side, and the second early detection and treatment. Similarly, there is a possibility this situation of origin compatibility also uh, illustrates the fact that by preventive measures, the very serious effects of development, if the disease is developed, those very serious effects can be uh, countered. आपने वो भेज दिया ना मुझे
जी सर।
लिंक, तो मैं इसके ऊपर आ रहा हूँ. Next. Internet comes to healthcare वाला से. Executive से कर लो. तो अभी आ जाए एक दफा फिर executive बता. ठीक हो गई है. नहीं चले. मैं इस पे आ जाता हूँ executive पे आ जाता हूँ. और आगे आ रहने देता हूँ. और
शेयर स्क्रीन।
मैं शेयर करना शुरू करूँ.
जी
सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही।
vaccines. And similarly, they have a facility where they are producing this
जी ठीक है,
Okay.
अब यहाँ से जाएंगे.
And global incidence is 0.1%. South Asia prevalence of is 3 times more, that is 0.3%, 385 cases per 100,000 live births. And countries with established healthcare infrastructure, their incidence is only 2.5 per 100,000 live births. So 2.5 compared to 385 here in our countries. अभी भी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
अब आ रही है.
So this is an important slide from that point of view, that it is the global incidence in developed countries and
ये उल्टी कैसे आती है?
अगर आवाज नहीं आ रही तो चले तस्वीर ही देख लें.
स्लाइड ही पढ़ लें.
हाँ, अब तस्वीर भी नहीं आ रही.
सर आप पीपीटी पे क्लिक करेंगे तो वो डिस्प्ले में आ जाएगी.
डॉक्टर काफी है ना, दोनों लगने चाहिए. हाँ, एक टाइटल इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए. प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर तब इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए मेरे ख्याल में जब बंदा पीएचडी हो. ओवर लगता है क्या? मैं तो ज्यादातर डॉक्टर इस्तेमाल करता हूँ, प्रोफेसर भी नहीं करता. जिनके फर्क पड़ता है उनको पता है. मैं प्रोफेसर अजीज मुद्दी फर्क पड़ता है.
ठीक है,
आज बाय बाय कर दो
ठीक है. तो
मेरी तरफ से कर दो. लेकिन ये लड़की तुम्हारे लिए, तुम्हें तो नजर आता है तुम पीछे बैठी